Today I'm trying 3 recipes from Betty Crocker's Dinner for Two cookbook. I'm revisiting this book. I have cooked from it before on this channel, and you may be thinking, didn't you just do a menu for 2 people very recently? Yes, I did. I wanted to try some recipes from this book that make more than 2 servings. So really, I'm just trying some recipes from the 1950s. The other thing I want to accomplish in this video is using up some of the things that are in my refrigerator, my pantry, and my freezer. It's great to stock up, of course it is, but part of stocking up is making sure that you use those things in a timely fashion. You don't want them to go bad or get old or become, inedible in any way. You want to use that stuff up. This is a particularly good time for me to do this this time of year because we're not quite getting into the holidays yet, but they are closer than you think. So it's always good to sort of get into your pantry, get into your freezer, assess what's in there, and use some of that stuff up. You'll find in some of these recipes, I'm making maybe a couple of little substitutions here and there, mostly because I'm trying to use some things that I already have. I did not make any special trips to the store for this video. I am gonna be making these chili enchiladas, and my main reason for doing so is because I have this can of chili in my pantry hanging out. I bought it for some other recipe and then I ended up not making it. And I was like, this kind of seems like a perfect way to use this can up. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you may also know of Melinda over at Unboxing Betty. She's cooking her way through the 1971 Betty Crocker recipe card library. And we've actually collabed before. She made this chili enchiladas recipe back in June of this year, but my recipe is from 1958 and she's cooking the one from 1971. And I thought it was kind of interesting because you can compare the 2 recipes and see how they've changed them a little bit over the years. So I am definitely gonna link her video about chili enchiladas in the description down below. She actually made the Bisquick tortillas that go with these enchiladas. I am not doing that, sorry to disappoint. I happen to have a whole bunch of flour tortillas in my refrigerator that I want to use up. I know enchiladas are often made with white corn tortillas, but because they included a recipe for Bisquick tortillas in this book to go with the enchiladas, I'm guessing that flour tortillas are gonna be just fine. I am cooking up 8 ounces of ground beef that I had in my freezer. To that, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of chopped onion. I'm just gonna cook that together until the meat is almost cooked through. So I'm gonna add my salt, that was seasoned salt, red pepper flakes, a 1/4 teaspoon of seasoned salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and then a dash of black pepper. Mix that together before I add my chili. A can of no beans chili, it is 15 ounces. I don't remember why I bought this. I'm not like, oh, I'm so against this. It's not a product I normally buy, so I know I got it for something that I ended up not making. I know Melinda also included a history lesson on this canned chili in her video. I would say that is pretty well combined. And now I need to cover this and let it simmer for 10 minutes before I assemble my enchiladas. My filling for these enchiladas has a little bit more time to simmer, but while we're waiting, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my baking dish. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this pattern. It's blue corn flour, but this particular dish was actually from 2018. So as you can see, this dish was released for the 60th anniversary. I did not buy this in 2018. In fact, I was unaware that that release happened. They had this casserole dish. I know there was, later I found out, there was a measuring cup, like a glass measuring cup, some other, different things to sort of go with this blue corn flour pattern and commemorate it. I found this on clearance at a Dillard's home section, which is not a place I go. I'm almost never at Dillard's. I'm never in the Dillard's home section, but I think I got this back in 2023 or 2024 on clearance for $19.99, and it is now discontinued. I just looked up the price at replacements.com, and I think it's about $75. So I just thought that was funny. I somehow, even though I'm into this, I missed that completely, but I was very lucky and I found one of these. I don't think I've ever used it on this channel because I don't often use big baking dishes, but I needed something that was more like a 9 by 13 size. So this is what I'm going with. I'm very excited about it. Right, I have a bit of an assembly line going, kind of. I've got my filling, I have my warmed tortillas, I just have them under like a damp towel, some melted butter, cheese, and onion. Okay, we're gonna put it all together now. My tortillas are of misfit sizes. I have like 2 different sizes here. Here I have my cheese. It said to use longhorn cheese, which is not something I have, and I didn't want to go buy some, but a substitute you can use is Monterey Jack cheese. I actually have some Mexican blend cheese that I needed to use up in here too. This is about using stuff up. Cheese, chili, enchiladas, like they're gonna taste good. I think they're gonna taste good anyway. I also have my oven heating to 350 degrees because we're gonna roll them up and bake them. It says to brush both sides of my tortilla with melted butter. If you were making enchiladas, this is where you would normally dip them in like some warmed sauce, enchilada sauce, tomato sauce, but they say melted butter. We're doing melted butter. And it has very specific measurements for the filling. It says 1 tablespoon of the chili. There's so much chili here too. I know you're supposed to put some of this inside, but you're also supposed to put it on top. So I feel like there's just gonna be a lot on top. So we have a tablespoon of the chili, 1 teaspoon of onion. That's some raw crunchy onion right there. And a teaspoon of cheese. There's so much cheese here too. I feel like they're putting a lot of this like on the enchiladas rather than in the enchiladas. We might change that. We might decide to change that a little bit. Okay, so to wrap or to roll, I am folding, I put my filling in the center, but I'm folding this. I'm gonna kind of drag it back a little bit, and then I'm gonna roll the rest of the way and place this in my dish, seam side down. We'll do it again. Maybe this is in the way, so I'll move it so then you can see. Okay, we're gonna brush with the melted butter. Gonna flip this over. Your hands are gonna get a little messy, but that's fine. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of a little mess. A tablespoon of the chili mixture. I'm gonna scrape it out with my little spatula, make sure it all gets in there. Teaspoon of chopped onion. Teaspoon-ish, probably a little more, of cheese. And then fold, drag, sorry, I know my hand's in the way. Fold, drag that back, sort of like tucking that one side under, and then roll it the rest of the way, and then put it in your baking dish. I'm gonna keep filling these, and then we'll move on. I don't think you wanna watch me fill all of them. Look at that row of enchiladas. Spoon remaining chili mixture over the tortillas, being careful to cover each tortilla in order to keep it from drying out. Okay, so let's do that. I'll spread this out with my spatula here in a moment. Will this look good? I don't know. We're gonna cover it in cheese anyway. Probably in 1958, like this was maybe something really different too. Cooks who were kind of like experimenting with other world cuisines maybe made this at one time. That's what I like to think anyway, especially with these recipes from the past that are maybe, you know, we like to kind of point them out and like make fun of them a little bit, but at one time that really could have been opening the door for someone in their cooking and trying new things. So I don't like to, you know, I don't like to tease too much about it. I made a video with 3 different Mexican recipes from 3 different decades. I'll link to that in the description down below, just in case you missed it. And that's kind of what I was going for with that video as well. Like maybe let's open the door for someone. Okay, so we got our chili. I'm supposed to put more onion on this, and I'm like at the limit for my onion consumption, I think, on this. So I'm skipping the onion, but if you want it on there, please do that. And then you're supposed to put the remainder of the cheese on this. These are gonna be some cheesy dishes. I will admit I went a little rogue on the cheese inside. I started out by measuring it, you know, a teaspoon at a time for each enchilada as directed in the recipe. And then I was just like, you know what, we're gonna measure with our heart. We're gonna just put what we feel like in there. So here we have it pre-oven. This needs to bake at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. Yes, melty, cheesy vibes here. So as I'm like looking at this is really reminding me of something, like a very specific kind of memory. Fall Friday nights before football games. I was in the marching band And usually at my house, because we lived very close to the high school, it was me and then usually 2 or 3 additional friends. So 2 or 3 additional, mouths to feed, teenagers who were probably ravenous. And my mom would cook things like chili, casseroles, things like that, things to fill us up and get ready for the game. And this is kind of like that. So it makes an abundance of food. It's inexpensive. It's things that probably a teenager is likely to eat and enjoy. Okay, I don't know how to attack this. I'm having a hard time. I think I'm gonna turn this because I can't see where one enchilada begins and the next one ends. It's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be pretty. I did it though. We did it. We got one. Okay, it smells good. Cheesy and comforting. It's pretty tasty. It's very simple. I would probably season this up a little bit more. You did add some red pepper flakes to this too. So I don't know, I'd add a little, I think I'd add some like garlic maybe. Maybe garnish with like a little cilantro or something like that. I mean, let's be honest here. My hometown, when I was a teenager, we did not have cilantro in our little grocery store. So that's not exactly a requirement. Very tasty, very fall vibes, warm and comforting. All right, I'm gonna make a blueberry buckle. I chose this recipe because I always have frozen blueberries in my freezer. I buy this giant bag from Costco. It's 4 pounds and it's $9.99. I think that's a great deal. Recently, I went to Costco and I found that they changed over to their store brand, like Kirkland brand wild blueberries, and it's 5 pounds for $8.99. So I can't vouch for those because I've never tried them, and I have a lot of blueberries in my freezer right now to get through. So I just wanted to put that out there. Blueberries, great frozen fruit to have on hand. I use them in my oatmeal, whether that's overnight, like cold oats or hot oatmeal in the winter. Sometimes I just like to eat them. I like to eat them with a little cinnamon and maybe a little whipped cream if I've got it, It's kind of a treat, but it's still fruit, right? So we're gonna do this blueberry buckle. It is a smaller batch recipe too, again, which I love. A buckle's kind of like a very simple cake usually with fruit in it. It's kind of like a coffee cake. This does have a streusel topping to it. So I'm preheating my oven to 375 degrees. It says mix thoroughly, sugar, shortening, and egg. This is 1/3 cup of sugar. And I chose to use butter, so I have 2 tablespoons of softened butter. There's my oven. I'm gonna get this shortening and sugar going first, just for a minute. I'm gonna add my egg here, and then we'll mix again. One final component of my wet ingredients, and that is 1/4 cup of milk. And I just need to mix that in until it's well combined too. Okay, we're gonna set that aside. And I have another little bowl here. So I'm going to sift together my dry ingredients. And that's 3/4 cup of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So I'm gonna sift that together in a small bowl. Now I have to stir this into here. That's a nice little batter. It's not too big, like not too much. I'm going to add my berries. I have 1 cup of wild blueberries that I have thawed and drained. I actually think I'm gonna drain these just a little bit more. They have been sitting a moment. There we go. Woo, yeah, this is a nice like thick batter. I made all those quick breads recently. That's what this is reminding me of. Looking pretty good. I have a Blue Heaven loaf here. I went ahead and sprayed this with some baking spray. You can grease and flour this. I'm taking a little shortcut. You could do this in a metal pan as well, but I wanted it to be cute and I love this pattern. So that's why I'm doing it in this sort of glass baking dish. You may need to change the time a little bit. Just keep an eye on it. Just smooth it. Just smooth it. And now I have a bit of a crumble topping that goes on this. And that consists of 1/4 cup of just regular sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, and 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm gonna mix that together first. And I have 2 tablespoons of butter. And you're just gonna kind of cut that butter into the flour. So when I make apple crumble, when I make like a crumble topping for that, I will often make like a double recipe of just the crumble, and then I'll freeze it. It's like another good thing to have in your freezer. So then when I want to make more, like another dish of apple crumble, the crumble topping's done. And I really just have to like slice up the apples and like put the sugar, cinnamon on them and then put that crumble topping. So it makes for kind of a quicker dessert. Just gonna sprinkle on the top, get a little on the counter along the way. We're gonna bake this at 375 degrees for 45 to 50 minutes. I am gonna keep an eye on it and I'll let you know if there are any updates on the bake time. Oh, it smells so good. So this baked for me in 40 minutes. I tested it with a toothpick. It is cooked. And I let this cool. I mean, it's still pretty warm. I probably let this cool 15 minutes in the pan. You are supposed to serve it warm. And as you can probably see, this is not like a tall loaf, right? This is basically like if you were baking half of a single layer cake, think an 8x8 pan. This is right around half of that size. So this is 3 to 4 servings of blueberry buckle. It's not like necessarily like a full size loaf. So I'm gonna cut this into fourths. Ooh, that crackly topping. It says to serve warm with cream. I'm just gonna eat it as is for right now. Yeah, it's coming out of the pan really nicely, like from the edges, I mean. Ooh, it looks great. Oh, I'm excited. Look at that. Oh, do you love it? Specifically, it says to serve at breakfast or as a mid-morning snack. It is mid-afternoon. We're having it as a mid-afternoon snack. And I'm excited about it. Holy cow. Looks great. It's like a blueberry coffee cake, basically. It's really nice, especially because it's still warm. I'll be interested to see how this is as it cools down. I'll report back. The cake, the cake is not super, super sweet because you do have blueberries, nice sweet blueberries in there, and then you have a like cinnamon sugar crumble kind of topping. But everything works together super well. And I like that it just makes like 4 servings. It's kind of perfect that way. Delicious. My final recipe for this video is going to be this cheese soufflé. Don't you love that illustration right there? I've made some soufflés before. I think I made a chocolate pudding soufflé on this channel and a soufflé omelet. I've made soufflés. I'm by no means an expert. I think it's good to do something that like challenges you a little bit, right? Maybe you're a little scared of the egg white component. Like I'm sometimes scared of egg white components. Not scared, I guess. It's just, there's room for things to go wrong. But just remember, if something goes wrong, like it's fixable, In this case, it's very fixable. And a soufflé is just fancy, isn't it? Like a fancy late 1950s kind of dinner. And in fact, I am noticing that this comes to us from the special occasion section of the book. I'm preheating my oven to 350 degrees and I'm melting some butter, as you can see. I really love to prep my ingredients for these videos, but especially when you're making a soufflé. For me, this is just like a me thing. Maybe it's a you thing too. It makes me feel more secure and like I can accomplish something like this if I have everything kind of ready to go and I give myself the time and the space to do this. My butter is all melted. That was 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons of butter. And I have an equal amount of flour here. This is 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons of flour. And I have a 1/4 teaspoon of mustard, a pinch of cayenne pepper, and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna start cooking that. Lower the heat just a touch. Using my flat whisk. Oh, and I need to get some pepper. One moment. Just a little, just a dash. Cook over low heat, stirring until mixture is smooth and bubbling. Okay. Yes, we're making a roux here. Make sure you get all the flour. That's where this comes in nicely. You can make sure there's no lumps in here. Okay. I need to turn off the heat here. Add 2/3 of a cup of milk. Whisk, whisk, whisk. We're gonna turn the heat back on. We're bringing it back. And just keep whisking. You don't want any lumps in this either. Actually, I'm gonna make my flat whisk into a balloon whisk. It's like a magic trick. And I need to bring this to a boil. Okay, that has thickened up a lot and it continues to thicken up. Wow. And now I need to stir in my cheese. I have 2/3 of a cup of shredded Swiss cheese. It says sharp cheddar cheese in the recipe. I had some Swiss cheese that I wanted to use. I'm gonna just add it. Wow, holy cow. Let that melt too. Actually just turned my heat off. I'm gonna let the residual heat melt that cheese. See, this is completely off the heat now. And I need to add 2 well-beaten egg yolks. These are like room temperature eggs. And you don't want to scramble those eggs. It's, You know, that's why I want everything to be a little bit like room temperature egg, slightly cooled sauce here. I transferred my mixture to this green bowl, which you don't have to do. The way that they're combining everything in this recipe is not like what I'm used to exactly. I just opted to transfer that mixture to this bowl. I'm gonna have an extra bowl to wash. I do not care. I do not care. Do what's right for you. So next come the egg whites. I have 2 egg whites here. I should have separated these on camera. Separating eggs on camera is not my favorite thing to do. There are little egg separating gadgets. Some people even like to crack the egg in their hand and let the white run through their fingers. I do the old school, like back and forth eggshell method. You know, I'm separating above here. I'm letting the white run into this little dish. And then when I'm ready, I put my yolk over here and then I dump the egg white into my like 3rd bowl. You don't want to risk getting any egg yolk or any other fat mixed in with your egg whites. So if you're gonna separate them like individually and do it like one at a time in a bowl, you know, separate, separate, dump, separate, separate, dump. That way, like if you do get a little bit of egg yolk into your whites, you don't have to like, it's not contaminating all of the whites that you've just separated. So if you're doing a lot of eggs, like for a meringue or something, like if you're doing 10 eggs and on that 10th egg, you get a fleck of yolk in your whites, it's not great. It messes with like the volume of the egg whites. So I don't know if I explained that very well, but I tried. I have my 2 egg whites here. Here they are. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now I'm gonna whisk these until stiff peaks form. Usually with these little whips or whisks on my hand mixer, this doesn't take very long, so we'll see. Okay, I just wanted to give you an update. We're not there yet, but this is 1 minute in, okay? If you can see those frothy egg whites, that's just to give you an idea. Okay. Minute and 45 seconds, that's all it took. Okay, so here is where I am sort of straying from the recipe because, and this is the reason I put my stovetop mixture into this bowl. Originally, what they wanted you to do is take that saucepan and dump it into the egg whites to combine them. Seems risky to me. Usually, like I'm used to kind of going in the other direction where you gently fold the egg whites into the heavier mixture. So that's what I'm gonna do. That was my reasoning behind this big extra bowl. I wanted to do it that way because it seems like I'll be a little more successful. I've also already selected a dish. This is going to be cooked in a water bath. So I have a 1 quart round casserole dish. I know this is not technically a souffle dish, but it's what I have. That's what I'm gonna use. I've baked stuff like, you know, souffles and stuff in this kind of dish before. Let me give myself some extra space. We're gonna be gentle because we just worked so hard to add volume to these egg whites. We don't, you know, that's what this dish kind of like relies on. Fold it gently, bring it up. You're not stirring it or anything. You're genuinely and gently folding it, and you're kind of like turning that spatula over, or no, like that, because you don't want to knock the air out of your egg whites. And it's all right to have a few little streaks in there. I've told you it's all right. Maybe it's not all right to you, but it's all right to me. You can probably do this in like individual souffle dishes as well. I'm just making one big one. I'm gonna take this out of here. This is an ungreased dish. I know that sometimes when you make souffle, I think especially if you're not baking it in a water bath, you would grease this. I think Julia Child even like buttered her dish and then put like finely grated Parmesan cheese. That would be delicious, but that's not what it says to do in this recipe, so that's not what I'm doing. So again, we're kind of being gentle here. Treat your mixture and yourself a little bit gently. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your souffle. Ooh, that was a lucky catch. That was a lucky catch. Here it is. We're gonna smooth the top. I'm not gonna do the fancy like around the edge kind of thing. I am gonna clean up this edge just a bit, but you can put like an indentation if you want it to rise a certain way. Not that serious. I'm just making this to have fun, not making this for a fancy 1950s dinner party, but that's kind of what it looks like. So I have some water in my kettle that I've heated. It's not boiling. You just want hot water. You don't want boiling water. So I'm gonna place this whole thing in my oven over here. and then I'm gonna add the water because it's way easier to transport than it is one with like, whoa, like hot water. Like, you'll see what I mean. Placing the dish in here. I have my kettle. I'm gonna fill this about an inch. Once I've filled this is gonna bake for 50 to 60 minutes. There we go. And don't forget, no peeking, do not open that oven door. You don't wanna let any of the air out to like change the cooking temperature. You wanna keep it very consistent. Remember last week? I think it was last week's video, or maybe a couple videos ago, when I had to apologize for the noise because of the lawn service. We need to stop meeting in this way because my lawn service was here again this week. So I did lose a little, volume on my souffle, but that's okay. I got my photos. It's gonna taste just fine, but it was quite loud, so I had to wait a little bit. Oh, sounds perfect. Sounds beautiful. I baked this for 45 minutes instead of the full 50. And it looks spectacular if I do say so myself. Wow, I am excited. Crust on top, fluffy, fluffy inside. Let's just get a bite here. Oh, it's like a cloud. Swiss cheese was an excellent choice. Even though the recipe recommended sharp cheddar, I just used some that I had. Delightful. Why don't I make cheese souffle more often? This is just so good. Even with the little bit of deflation, it's still kind of an impressive looking dish. And it's very impressive tasting too. Oh yeah. So do yourself a favor. Try making yourself a little cheese souffle. Give yourself time. Give yourself space. This is only 2 eggs, folks. 2 eggs and a few other ingredients. And you have this like magical concoction. Betty Crocker's Dinner for Two cookbook was published in 1958. And I'll give you a look at the cover. See if it snaps into focus there. There is the back. I'm a huge fan of this book, and especially the illustrations, because this cookbook was illustrated by Charlie Harper. Can you see? I mean, those birds, very recognizable, right? If you're familiar with Charlie Harper's work, then you can see like this is definitely his style. So Betty Crocker's Dinner for Two cookbook, this is the 1958 edition. This concept was something that they did quite a few times. I have the 1964 version. I feel like people are very familiar with this book as well. And then I think this one is from 1973. So, you know, these are sort of like a bigger one. This is the little format. I like these little format books. These are usually from like the 50s. It says 491 recipes and menus, including a when company is coming section. I think maybe my cheese souffle was for company. There's more drawings than there are photos of the food. We have a few. So you have these color photo pages with actual photographs of the food. Buffet supper. Ooh, continental appetizers. You can see. Check that out. So this is fun because I always love to show like the cake section of a book. Ah, yes, An Evening in Paris. That is what they titled this menu here. And you know, I love food photographs, but Charlie Harper is probably like one of my favorite artists. So it's very special that his illustrations appear in this book. I'm also wondering if this like hand lettering that you see for some of the menus, if that's also him. It kind of looks like it could be. These animal sort of illustrations here. I think a squirrel, a raccoon. You know, he did a lot of animal illustrations for, I think, like the Cincinnati Zoo. These two. I think it's interesting, like, I'm not an expert on Charlie Harper by any means, but I'm used to seeing like his animal drawings more so than people. So I thought it was kind of interesting to see the people in this particular book as well. You have this cowboy with a steer. I mean, this is one of those ones that, sure, it's fun to cook from, but it's really a lot of fun just to look through as well. So this book is full of mostly recipes for 2 people. The ones that I chose today were for more people. So, you know, I recently did a video that was a dinner menu for 2. I didn't want to use this book with those particular recipes because they're really for 2 people. They're still kind of like smaller small-ish amounts of food, but you know, they serve more than two. And sometimes I just like to try recipes from a decade without like tying them together in a really specific way. Oh my goodness, you have to look at this pumpkin. Halloween is closer than you think. So let's talk about the recipes I made today. I started with chili enchiladas. This was one of those dishes that was just, it was kind of like a casserole. It was very warm and comforting, very filling, you know? And it used up a few things in my pantry, which was kind of another goal I had for this video. I wanted to sort of delve in there and like pull some things out that they were still fine, but I wanted to use them up. This is a super easy dish to put together. You know, the chili, the canned chili is pretty much already seasoned. I did add some red pepper flakes per the recipe. I probably would have added just like maybe a little bit of garlic or maybe some cilantro or parsley on top for some like fresher flavor. You could serve this with like lettuce and tomato as well if you wanted to add a little bit of freshness to the dish. It used up that can of chili that was in my pantry and it tasted really good. It reheated very well too. I had quite a bit of it left over. Some of it went into the freezer. And I had some for lunch today that I reheated in my toaster oven. Toaster oven is the way to go if you have access. Heating it in the microwave, I think it would have been kind of soft, but reheating it in the toaster oven, you know, it warmed everything up, but it kind of like crisped up the top a little bit. And it was absolutely delicious. My second recipe was blueberry buckle. What a nice little bake this was. It just made 4 pieces of kind of like a coffee cake studded with blueberries. And I think you could use other fruit in this too. I'm kind of thinking like maybe I would like to try this with apples and see how that goes, or use other berries even. I also imagine myself making this if it's like, oh, someone's coming over for coffee and I need something. I want like a little cake or a treat to go with the coffee or the tea. It's something that you can just kind of like put together in the morning and bake, and then you have it and you can serve it warm. But you could also make this ahead of time. So in the interest of experimentation, so you saw me try it on camera when it was more fresh from the oven. And then the next day I actually cut a piece in half and I tried it without warming it, and it was delicious. And then I tried the other half of that piece by using their warming instructions. It's like wrap it in foil and warm it for 5 to 10 minutes in a 350-degree oven. And that was like totally revived, you know. You can eat this without it being warm, but if you can warm it, I think it's even better. The batter itself, not super sweet, but then you have the sweet fruit in the cake and that cinnamon sugar topping. I love any dessert, any bake that is kind of on the smaller side and I don't have, you know, a whole 9x13 pan of it to eat or to give away or to do whatever. It's just nice to have those 4 pieces and just be kind of like done with it. And then finally, I made a little cheese souffle. And it was like eating a cheese cloud. It was so good. It wasn't really that hard. You know, I always get a little nervous when I'm whipping up egg whites. I shouldn't. That mixer I have actually makes it very simple and does a really good job. But there's always just like a little element of danger, like, oh no, I over whipped these or I didn't do it right or whatever. It was actually pretty easy and I think you should try it. If you've never made a souffle before, give this one a try. And I could see this as like a nice light lunch with like maybe a nice salad on the side and a dessert, maybe that blueberry buckle or maybe something a little fancier. I think this might be the cookbook where I got the little pot de creme from. I'm not sure. Maybe the pumpkin custard. There are some nice small desserts in this book. But anyway, yeah, the cheese souffle would make a nice light lunch or, you know, the starter to a bigger, like fancier dinner. And it seems very elegant. It is very elegant. I'll give it that. It's very elegant. You know, as long as you have enough time to make it, because it does kind of have a little bit of a longer bake time. And also you need to give yourself enough time to do all the other steps. Like if you've got the time, it's really not that hard to make. So that was my look at Betty Crocker's Dinner for Two from 1958. Do you have this cookbook in your collection? Have you cooked from it before? I'd love to hear about it, so please leave me a comment. Do you love cookbooks and recipes from the 1950s? I have an entire playlist and I'll link it in the description down below. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll have a link in the description so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.